Father Ted from Fr.TEDTalks on this beautiful, crisp October 31st morning here in Toronto, which, as all of you know, October 31st is also in the Western world Halloween. And today I wanted to dedicate my video to this. As you can see, our format is a little bit different today since I've been very, very busy this week, and also I've been sick for the last couple of weeks, so I haven't blogged for a while. And I didn't have time to kind of set up our regular video recording, but I didn't want to let this kind of a topic go by, because a lot of people have asked me about Halloween. What is the Orthodox position on it? Is there an official Orthodox position on it? And of course, if you look on the internet and you Google it, you will find a lot of different positions. And the interesting thing is that in the Orthodox world, you're going to find positions that range from the extreme right, which would be, Halloween is the devil, it's evil, it's wrong, we should not participate in it, we should basically lock our doors and keep our children away from it, to the extreme left, where Orthodox Christians express that Halloween is something good and something that can be Christianized and something that we can participate in. And there's even Orthodox Christians who don't see a problem with dressing up even as negative things like vampires and ghosts and things like that, and hosting kind of like these kind of darker Halloween parties and things like that. So we have this big extreme range of opinions in the Orthodox world without having kind of an official position. Of course, if you look at a lot of Orthodox websites, you'll see that generically most of them adopt this position that is very popular amongst evangelical Protestants, which is that Halloween, historically speaking, is somehow a resurgence of this ancient Druid pagan holiday of Samhain, which is the coming of the winter and the commemoration of death and the coming of death, because of course in the winter all nature dies. And basically the narrative that has kind of been advanced and that is out there in most of the material online is that the Christians in the early church kind of came face to face with these kind of pagan Druid feasts and tried to Christianize them, as many times the church tried to Christianize pagan activities. And so that happened quite often. We know that, for example, the 25th of December, Christmas, is also a Christianized pagan feast of the sun god, Solus Dei, in the Roman Empire. And the Christian church kind of superimposed Christ over it to Christianize it, to adopt it, and to make it better. In the case of Halloween, however, it's not so. I'm going to be posting an article by John Stanidopoulos, which I've also posted on my Facebook a couple of days ago, of course garnering a little bit of controversy in the posts, in which the article is really good because it kind of gives you a good background of the Feast of Halloween, how it came to be, the erroneous connection between Halloween and ancient pagan roots, which there really isn't any historical evidence for it. It's really important to note that kind of most of the polemic that's out there in favor of connecting Halloween with ancient pagan roots and Druids and things like that is pretty much fabricated by evangelical Protestant groups over the last century in order to combat Halloween, especially in the last 20-30 years, to tell you the truth. Really, this kind of connection of Halloween with the macabre, death, paganism, occult, Satanism, things like that. Most of that stuff didn't really come about until the 70s and 80s. In the article that you'll read that I have attached to this video, you'll see that it was really with the rise of the modern satanic church with Anton LaVey, and also, believe it or not, with the rise of slasher films starting in the late 70s and early 80s that connected Halloween with the occult, that really kind of brought about this type of expression of negativity in connection to Halloween. If we go back to like the late 1800s or early 1900s, especially in North America, you'll see that Halloween had more of a family character, had more of a harvest festival character. People were bobbing for apples, people were doing kind of carnivals and festivals, and things like that. And it was more associated with the idea of commemorating All Saints, All Hallows Eve, which is where Halloween comes from. So that's kind of like a little bit of the historical. As I said, a lot of the more historical nuances you can read in the article that I've posted. But I bring that about not to necessarily justify Halloween, because anybody who knows me, especially ever since I became a priest, knows that I've been very critical of Halloween, and especially the contemporary expression of it. So, the modern expression of Halloween is very, very different. Now, it is my opinion that because mostly Protestant Christians in Canada and in the States approached Halloween in this negative light and pulled back from it, they created a vacuum. They created a cultural vacuum which allowed groups, different modern so-called occult groups and pagan groups, to kind of step in and to try to claim it as its own, especially the commercial world, kind of marketing all this kind of negative demonic imagery to the Feast of Halloween. It's because Christians have stepped back and allowed other people to reclaim this as their own that I think we've seen the proliferation of this kind of negative aspect of Halloween. And so I think it's important to note that. Not to say that the modern expression of Halloween is necessarily a good thing. I really think that the modern imagery that is presented in Halloween is predominantly negative. It's predominantly demonic. And so it puts us Christians, especially Orthodox Christians, in a very difficult situation. What is this difficult situation? On one hand, we want to basically be in the world, but not of the world. We want to be the salt of the earth. We want to influence society, and we want to influence them with our point of view, and also with our lives, with our Christian lives, our examples. And we don't want to be tainted by, modern trends and modern traditions in society that we consider to be non-Christian or anti-Christian. On the other hand, we also walk that fine line between not being of the world, but being in the world, engaging with the world, and engaging with these types of feasts, and trying to Christianize them. This is what the early church did. They attempted to Christianize pagan feasts. And even though Halloween did not start off as a pagan feast and then was attempted to be Christianized, but rather originally was more of a Christian holiday that now has been paganized, perhaps there can be an argument that we need to take that back. We need to take Halloween back for the Christians. I don't know if that's possible. I'm just throwing that out there as something to ponder, because I think that it's not so black and white. Now, my personal opinion is that although, yes, you can emphasize to your kids not to be evil things, not to be vampires, not to be ghosts, not to be, ghouls and things like that, negative imagery, and to dress up as positive things, at the same time, they are bombarded in our society by all of this. If you go to Walmart and you walk down the Halloween aisle, all you're going to see, the majority of the time, is, severed heads and limbs and things like that. That's predominantly the imagery that our children are going to see. And this is what they're going to see in school. They're going to see witches and goblins and this kind of spooky atmosphere. So that is definitely a problem of living within, at least the society that we live in North America. In Europe, it's not really a problem. The question is, how do we deal with it, right? So any time that we've seen that we've tried to, as Orthodox Christians, take an adversarial stance against pop culture in North America, we see that we usually lose. Why do we lose? Because our children are saturated by it. And when we set up this kind of a dichotomy between the church and the world, usually we lose that battle, and our children end up rebelling against the church because they see it as something strict, something that doesn't understand culture, an institution that is against anything that's fun or anything that's that all their other friends are participating in. And that doesn't mean that we should always give our children carte blanche to do whatever they want, to participate in everything, so that they will not be unpopular. No, that's not what Orthodox Christians should do. But at the same time, I think we have to be very careful on how we approach the concept of Halloween. This is the way that I would approach as an Orthodox Christian. So my children now are 4.5 years old. They just started school, and they are about to kind of participate in this kind of world. And so they're seeing everything about Halloween. They're being kind of sucked into it. For them, it's all about candy and things like that. So how do I approach it? Do I basically shut off all the lights, forbid them to participate in anything in school, pull them out of their classes, not allow them to wear any costumes at all, things like that? Well, no. The approach that I've taken is the approach of education. So basically, I speak with my children about Halloween. I speak to them about the roots of it. I speak to them about the modern day expression of it. I speak openly to them about how we as Christians should not be participating in negative imagery and things like that, and that perhaps witches and goblins and things like that are not positive things for their eyes to be seeing, even though they will be encountering it at school, whether they like it or not. And I basically do not forbid them, but rather I try to teach them and cultivate within them discernment. And this is what the Christians should be doing, in my opinion. The Christians should be engaging with the world and discerning, as opposed to putting on the blinders. Now, I know there's a lot of Orthodox Christians that will disagree with me. I know that a lot of Orthodox Christians will say, well, Father, 5-6 years ago, you used to say, put the blinders on and, don't do anything, or, create alternative nights, as some churches have done in Toronto. Some Orthodox churches will have harvest festivals or parties where they'll have the kids maybe not dress up or even dress up, and they'll give them candy and do games and things like that. Those are not necessarily bad ideas. However, they do serve to segregate our people away from modern society. And we know that usually that doesn't work. Segregating our children from their friends and from society without engaging is not really teaching them how to be actual discerning Orthodox Christians. Rather, it is more like closing them off to the world and creating a type of ignorance or creating a type of hate for the world. We have to be very careful about that. So while I'm not against, harvest festivals and, hallelujah nights and things like that churches are doing, I did them at one point in Winnipeg as well. At the same time, they might actually cause more issues as our children get older and feel that their families are so different from society or judging society or their friends that it might create this kind of negative dichotomy in their minds. I believe that it is better to teach them discernment and to allow them to engage to a certain degree while at the same time monitoring them. So basically what I do is that I don't allow my children to go to homes to trick-or-treat that have, severed heads and skeletons and all this kind of negative things outside. Rather, what we do is, we allow them to dress up in something positive. And at this end, we will take them out, and we will take them usually to neighbors that we know who usually do not have any negative imagery in their homes. We'll just give them candy and keep the experience very positive. So we try to walk a fine line between the two. And we hope that as they get older, and if they have a strong faith and they continue to go to church and learn all the other aspects of the Orthodox faith, which I think we also need to remember are more important than this issue, I think that they will build that type of discernment to understand what is negative and what is not negative. This is, I know this is more of a middle ground stance, but I also believe that this is the Orthodox stance, because the Orthodox usually take the middle approach. They usually take not a lukewarm approach, but rather taking their strong faith and applying it to their discernment of what is happening in the world. Also, we should also be careful as Orthodox Christians not to become fundamentalist Protestants, because a lot of the diatribe and negative, language that we use towards pop culture is usually fed to us by Protestant theology, not by Orthodox theology. And a lot of times the way we approach Halloween, or even the way we approach other things, such as, for example, evolution, which I did a video a few months ago, or even the way we read scripture, things like that, we are actually spouting a lot of Protestant theology, not knowing that it's Protestant theology, that it's not Orthodox, and we take these kind of very, very hard positions as opposed to cultivating discernment in ourselves and in our children. So usually this is born out of fear as opposed to being born out of understanding. So again, what is my conclusion? My conclusion is that most of the historical arguments against Halloween don't really hold water, and I think you can see that in the article that I've posted. But on the other hand, we should be cautious as Orthodox Christians, as parents, on what we expose our children to. And since our children are going to be exposed anyways to most of this stuff in the school environment and amongst their friends, we need to do the best we can not to necessarily ostracize our children from the modern world and from their friends and from the society in which they live, but rather to cultivate a strong understanding of who Christ is, what is the church position on these things, what do we believe as Orthodox Christians about the sanctification of the world, about fighting against the evil forces, about the demonic imagery in the world, and to help them discern those things, so that while they can participate to a certain degree, they do not necessarily have to accept everything or participate in everything in its fullest. They can learn that discernment. And as little children, of course, they will need more guidance from us, as opposed to when they get older, and hopefully they have cultivated that discernment for themselves. This is the same thing that can be said about Christmas, about Pascha, which the Western world calls Easter, which we shouldn't be calling anyways. All the other feasts have been largely secularized in our world, and we as Orthodox Christians, we fall into the danger there of also celebrating those feasts as secular feasts and not including our Christian faith in those as well, because we think that because those have a Christian character, for example, Christmas or Pascha have a Christian character anyways, we think that it's okay not to go to church, simply put up a tree, give out some gifts, and make it into the materialistic feast that everybody else has made it into. So I think that we have to be careful and use discernment in all aspects of our modern day lives. These are my thoughts. I know not everybody is going to agree with them. but I've tried to put forth kind of like the most balanced approach to Halloween. You know, stay away from the bad stuff, stay away from the demonic, try to emphasize the positive with your children, try to help them live within the world but not be of the world. But at the same time, I think that we should take the middle road, that we shouldn't reject the world wholesale. And I don't think Halloween can be completely rejected wholesale, but I think also we shouldn't necessarily adopt and accept everything of Halloween wholesale either. I think we need to walk that middle path between what is good, to be like the bee, as our friend Steve Christoforu from Be the Bee on Ancient Faith says. Be the bee. Take what is good, leave what is bad. That is the Orthodox way. Until next time, this is Father Ted signing off. Don't forget to like and subscribe. God bless you, and I'll see you next in a couple of weeks. Take care.